welcome back. Well, today we are looking at the subject of the elders. We're looking into the elders book. And the question comes up, do the elders legally qualify as family counselors? Have you, if you're watching and you've been a Jehovah's Witness at one time, have you ever been in an elders meeting for family counseling? Well, during the course I was in there many times. And the advice, it sucked. It was bad advice. In fact, in the last elders meeting I was in, the advice was so bad I appealed the meeting. 6 more people came in because I wanted the outside opinion of my medical professional, my doctor. And this case was regarding a child, my child. And to this day, I got ostracized because of that meeting. It didn't go well. I eventually left. And my daughter, my child, does not talk to me. And I believe it's because of that meeting, how that meeting was handled. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, do the elders legally qualify as family counselors? Well, the short answer is no, absolutely not. But through this video, we're going to give substantial information to show why. And we're going to show it right from the Secret Elders book as to why they do not qualify to counsel, to do any kind of family counseling at all. So bear with me, folks. What does it mean to be a counselor? What's involved in counseling? If I was an elder and I was a newly elected elder and I got a hold of this elders book, let's just take a look at it briefly here. This elders book looks like this. If I got a hold of this elders book, it's close to 300 pages. And there's all these subheadings in here. We get down to the table of contents here. And if we get into children, there's a whole section on children right there. So we'll go to that and we'll show you. It's on child abuse. That's what this whole section's about. There's 30 pages or such in here on child abuse. And we covered this in some of our other videos. But it says here, elders should adhere closely to the directions in this chapter when a matter involving child abuse comes to their attention. And doing so will uphold the sanctity of Jehovah's name. See, what they're interested in this organization is right out the gate is Jehovah's name and contribute toward the safety of minors. But their first thing is Jehovah's name. They will hide pedophilia, they hide it. And they tell the elders, just go to the legal department. That's what they say right in their elders book here, point 6. Child abuse is a crime, and they say in some jurisdictions, individuals who learn of an allegation of child abuse, and they qualify, may be obligated by law to report the allegation to the secular authorities, maybe. So it says to ensure that the elders comply with child abuse reporting laws, 2 elders should immediately call the legal department. You see, they're bypassing the law. They're having the elders call the legal department, and then the legal department decides. And this is where all the cover-ups have taken place, is because of the organization. It's very highly controlled. And of course, their first thing is number 1, is to protect Jehovah's name. Now, Jehovah's name, God doesn't need anybody to protect his name. So really what's going on here, Jehovah equals Watchtower. So they really want to protect Watchtower's name, their name. And they don't want to look like the Catholic Church and others that have all these cover-up problems with child abuse. So this is their big thing. This is the most recent elders book out. It's the October 2023 latest edition. It's a secret elders book, and this is how it deals with child abuse. So as we look up here, up the column here, legal considerations, that's the first thing they talk about. Congregation considerations. Then they get to providing spiritual assistance to the victims, point 12. Let's go there, point 12 to 17, and see how they put it here. Elders should demonstrate empathy and compassion when anyone approaches them about a matter involving child abuse. Ongoing spiritual shepherd is especially important for victims of child sex abuse and their families. It says 2 elders should always be involved when shepherding an adult sister who is a victim of child abuse. And here's the thing. Should men be counseling these women that are victims? I think if the women that were victims had a choice, they might want a woman counselor. And you see in the Canadian law and most laws, you can choose your counselor. So especially when it comes to child abuse. Now, when shepherding, they go on to say when shepherding a child abuse victim who is still a minor, 2 elders and a minor's parent should be involved. Of course, if one of the parents is accused, the accused parent would not be involved. And then they go on to talk about at the time the elders can spend shepherding an individual who is a victim of child abuse is limited. Here's the point. Point 16. The time that the elders can spend shepherding an individual in the congregation who is a victim of child abuse is limited? Really? It's limited. That's what they're saying. It's limited. And so what they're telling their elders just to balance it. This isn't what you're there for. So, but they're not telling them. They are saying they could go out and get some support, but they're saying the child abuse may seek more spiritual support from the elders than they can reasonably give. In such cases, some elders have found it beneficial to set limits on the time for such shepherding, and it may take several visits to assist a victim effectively. Like, what do these elders know about assisting these victims effectively? What do they know about ongoing counseling, especially with sexual abuse? If I was elected as a new elder, I'd say I'm not qualified. There's no way I can do that. You see, these elders are put into this, and they're told that Jehovah will guide them. Like some invisible instruction's going to come out from the sky. It doesn't work that way, folks. That's the facade. That's this blind facade that the governing body of this organization paints. And these elders go out here blindly. They don't know. They don't know how to do it. Some are window washers, some are janitors. It's not their profession. So, and it's telling them here, after you go a few times, you're going to have to quit because you're not qualified. They're even pretty much saying that here. And then they said set limits on it. What else was it saying? It was saying to send someone else. In addition, they could send other people. And on and on. But they don't get the person to go outside. They don't recommend that. There's nowhere in here. If a person does have to go outside for serious medical things, they're with them on that. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, they kind of want to keep it inside. Point 17 here above me, they're saying send some sister, or if an adult sister is agreeable, right here. An elder or two may discreetly ask a mature sister if she's could help. Well, just because a sister in the congregation's mature, maybe raised a family, now you're asking her to be a family counselor, which takes years and years of understanding. Like, this is the folly within this organization's and their elders book. It's crazy. So now let's look at what does it take this organization to make you a counselor? Like, let's say I'm a brand new elder. What's the qualifications for me to counsel children? Because this is the elders book is saying to go out and counsel children. After a few visits, just close your book on it because you got other things to do. That's kind of what this book is saying. So let's look at that. Let's look at what does it take? What's the qualifications in this organization to be a child counselor? Let's go to that section next. Okay, so this is the section called Chapter 8, Appointment and Deletion of Elders and Ministerial Servants. So even if you're a ministerial servant, you are qualified to be a child counselor. And the very first one is consider the scriptural qualifications. Then caution before recommending certain brothers. It gets into previously reproved, disfellowshipped, or disassociated. There's a time limit. Separated or unscripturally divorced, so they wouldn't qualify. Served as an elder or ministerial servant in the past. Baptized for many years, but only now being recommended. They even look at that, like, why are you only now being recommended? What's wrong with you? A lot of scrutinizing going on here. And when the appointed brother moves out of the congregation, when an appointed brother moves into the congregation, there's all these qualifications to reappoint people. So recommendations for appointment during the circuit overseer's regular visit. So he gets involved, the circuit overseer, and this is a guy that travels around to multiple congregations or districts. And so he also has a say. Situations that require a review of an appointed brother. So sometimes they have to, if the brother's not doing his job right. It's dicey. Now, I want to show you one thing when they're looking at these brothers. We're going to look at a scripture. This is right off the bat, considering scriptural qualifications. So I pulled up the scripture here. Let's see if it comes up. Right here. 1 Timothy 3, qualifications for an overseer. So this is how they do it. If you supposedly meet these scriptures, you got to meet these qualifications plus there's other things. You got to have the proper amount of hours. You got to be out in service. So now they're not counting time, they're probably going to look at visual presence, scrutinizing. And they're going to want to make sure they see these brothers active at all the service arrangements, that they're out. Elders are going to be scrutinizing, grooming these new brothers to be ministerial servants and elders. So here's what they look for for qualifications. In 1 Timothy 3, it says, the saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to the office of overseer, he desires a noble task. Therefore, an overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not a drunkard, not a violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church? He must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. And moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders, so that he may not fall into disgrace, into a snare of the devil. And then there's also qualifications for deacons. And all this will read somewhat the same. This is the English Standard Version. It'll read somewhat the same in the New World Translation. I like how this Bible kind of breaks it out, though. Qualifications for overseers, and then qualifications for deacons. It's a little higher qualification, right? So it says in verse 8, deacons likewise must be dignified, not double-tongued, not addicted to much wine. Not addicted to much wine. A little, you can be addicted to a little wine, not much. I like how it says that. So deacons, once you graduate from an overseer, you see, the overseers can't get drunk at all. It says there, verse 3, not a drunkard. Not at all. But deacons, now you're a circuit overseer or something like that, right? A deacon, maybe a district overseer. That's why the governing body, they're not addicted to much wine. Yeah, just a little bit. A little scotch, maybe. Not greedy for dishonest gain. They must hold the mystery of the faith with a clear conscience. And let them also be tested first, and then let them serve as deacons if they prove themselves blameless. And their wives likewise must be dignified, not slanderers, but sober-minded, faithful in all things. Let deacons each be a husband and one wife, managing their children and their households well. For those who serve well as deacons gain a good standing for themselves and also great confidence in the faith. See, there's nothing in here about child counseling. Nothing in here. Now, here's what I did notice. It did say they must be above reproach, not a drunkard, not quarrelsome. You got to manage your own household. Here it is, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. So he'd have to have his children in line, I guess. That's why I could never qualify. How will he care for God's church? He can't be a recent convert. So all these young elders, what about that? What about all these young elders that never had children? Here I'm looking at the qualifications in the Bible, and it says they're kind of looking for someone that's kind of had a family maybe, and went through life, experienced a few things. But a lot of the JWs, they're taking young men in, and we'll look at that in a second here. But this is what the Bible says. It's not saying that this person has to go in and do any kind of counseling that I can see. Well, I read over it again just here, and it looks to me like these guys are just guys that would get up and kind of oversee a church, oversee your church kind of thing. Set up the schedule, things like that, get up and give a talk. That's kind of what this is talking about. The Bible doesn't set these guys out to go in and do some heavy counseling, but we're going to look at that. And we're going to look at what society expects from a church. Do they expect the church to be able to provide counseling if they go to them? We're going to look at that. Do they have a legal requirement? And that's going to be our next topic here. Okay, so we're looking at Church Law Center. This is out of California. And it says here, churches with large and diverse congregations often have members who are facing difficult personal challenges. Giving counsel and comfort to someone who is suffering can be thought of as the core purpose of many religious communities. And churches should understand how offering counseling services may affect their legal liability, so it can be incorporated into the risk management strategies. Church counseling services can take a number of forms. The simplest is the advice given by a pastor to members of his or her congregation, informed by the pastor's theological training. Many churches also offer the services of lay people who have volunteered to act as counselors. Such people may or may not have specific training or professional licenses. For example, a church might establish a crisis hotline that is run by volunteers who are primarily asked to serve as compassionate and caring listeners. So here's some of the points, folks. Neglect counseling. Churches and pastors have been held liable for the negligent provision of counseling services in cases where pastors have provided counseling that goes beyond religious advice into the realm of secular psychotherapy. So this is a good point, folks. There's a lot of people with other health conditions, and when these health conditions are brought before these elders and they slough them off, and they don't allow a medical doctor, or they don't encourage that, there's liability. So here's what it says. It says providing counseling that goes beyond. So when elders get involved and they go beyond just normal counseling, this is where it gets dicey. It says, in such cases, the person receiving counseling has gone on to suffer a serious harm that can be traced to the pastor's advice. In the simplified terms, the pastor's advice has made the individual's situation worse. So this is what happens within these elders' meetings. These elders figure they're acting like doctors. And when it comes to blood transfusions, people are losing their lives every day in this organization. Now let's go to the second one, sexual abuse. From an organizational standpoint, churches must always be mindful of the potential for sexual abuse by their agents, including ministers, employees, and volunteers, against vulnerable people who come to the church for help. Breach of confidentiality. In the course of providing advice to individuals who have personal problems, a counselor often hears about the highly sensitive details about a person's health and family. Churches can breach various privacy laws if they don't take adequate steps to ensure such information remains confidential. And failure to intervene. The confusing inverse of a duty to keep certain confidence is a potential necessity to report certain things, like child abuse. So even though we want to keep certain things confident, there's some things that have to be reported, and that's what this is bringing out, like child abuse to the authorities. Although a minister may be exempt from some forms of disclosure obligation, for example, due to the sanctity of confession, a lay person acting as a counselor may have different legal obligations. Churches can be sued for failing to comply with legally mandated disclosure requirements, such as an obligation to report child abuse. The key thing to remember about counseling individuals who have serious personal problems is that the church is not always equipped with the necessary skills to provide comprehensive solutions for things like mental illness, addiction, or abuse. And some suffering from problems like these may turn to a church because it is a trusted, safe place. That's like going to the elders. In fact, the elders, for medical reasons, they want you to go there. They have a whole section in their elders book, and we'll look at that next on medical. So here it's saying churches, if they're offering this counseling, it's serious. They're going to have policies to take full account of their legal obligations and risks. And policies can cover a range of important topics, including these. The appropriate scope of advice can be offered in a counseling session, like what you can talk about. When it comes to sex abuse, bang, that goes to outside. Elders are not qualified for this. When individuals should be referred to professionals. You see, when someone has medical conditions, this whole blood transfusion thing has to go away completely. It does not meet the qualifications for proper family counseling in any country. But yet, the governments and the authorities are allowing religions, namely, such as Jehovah's Witnesses, to continue to enforce their blood doctrine upon families and children and infants. And lives are continually being lost. And then they enforce a shunning policy, so that if no one listens, they teach the members to shun the people around. And that's just so destructive. It doesn't fit any of the family counseling policies. So it says here, we finish up a clear statement of what sort of incidents must be reported to law enforcement, talking about sex abuse. Procedures to prevent sexual abuse, for example, by eliminating the opportunity for abusers to be alone and unobservable within their potential victims. So this is serious, folks. We know that the Jehovah's Witness Elders book says call the legal department. It doesn't say to go. It says they may go to the authorities, but the elders are to call the legal department. You see, that's, to me, a breach of any legal requirement to those elders. Okay, we're back at the elders book, and I wanted to show you this before we skip to another section. But right here, this is under the qualifications for being a counselor, a child counselor within the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. Here it is, point number 7, point number 6. Yeah, point number 5. The elders should help brothers in their late teens to reach out to qualify to be ministerial servants. So in other words, the elders should help brothers in their late teens to reach out and qualify to be child counselors. Because in the organization, a ministerial servant has to meet the same qualifications as an elder. It says that right in this elders book. So it's just a matter of time. So once they're a ministerial servant, they are put in charge of children in certain situations, especially service arrangement groups where people would all come in and arrange for field service. Ministerial servants are put in charge of that at times. So there's many responsibilities that they have. So here you go. Here's the qualifications. Brothers in their late teens can reach out, and they can be child counselors in this organization. because a ministerial servant is such that. Okay, the next section is Medical Matters 11, chapter 11. There's a whole chapter on this. It's all about the blood doctrine. And we did a whole video on this if you go back in the video library. I can put one at the end, but it's all about this blood card and how to abstain from blood. So would that qualify for professional family counseling in your state, province, or country? Appreciate hearing your comments. But I don't think here in Canada this would. But yet, we're allowing it. The Canadian government allows these groups to be classified as religions, and they allow them to receive the charity benefits from the governments. There's all kinds of money that these groups get from our governments. Okay, so the next subject we're going to go to. Okay, my last piece on this elders book, because we're thinking in terms of family counseling, right? Now, how the elders book, chapter 1, right out the gate, how the elders work together as a body. It talks about responsibility, elders meetings. And where are we here? Yeah. Okay, so let's go back down here. How elders work together, responsibilities, elders meetings, when to hold them, pursue peace, blah, blah, blah. Okay, right out the gate, Jehovah has appointed Jesus Christ as a head, and you accepting Jesus as a head of the congregation promotes cooperation and unity in the body. You demonstrate submission to Christ's headship when you do the following. Seek to understand and apply laws and principles. Basically go to the Watchtower volumes. Number 2, obey direction from the faithful and discreet slave. There it is, guys. This is about obeying this elders book. Right there out the gate, obey the faithful, discreet slave. Obey their direction. So all the way through this elders book, when it comes to CSA, they have to call the faithful, discreet slave, the branch office. And that's where they're getting their extra direction from. But this is what they have. This is how they do family counseling within Jehovah's Witnesses, is they obey. Okay, we're going to blast through some of this a little bit quicker. How to become a child counselor. Within the field of psychology or social work, there are specific careers that work specifically with children. Becoming a child counselor is one of these areas that supports a healthy development of youth during their formative years. Understanding how to become a child counselor can provide you with clear steps to follow in pursuing this career option. In this article, we discuss what a child counselor does and how to become one, along with the skills needed in various work environments and so forth. So what does a child counselor do? Well, a child counselor or a child and youth counselor is a mental health care professional specializing in helping children and teenagers navigate mental and emotional challenges in their developmental years. They help children live happily and emotionally stable lives by assessing and guiding them and their parents through specific issues. A child counselor may specialize in certain disorders such as attention deficit, hyperactive disorder, or family counseling to address depression or behavioral problems. Some of the primary duties of a child counselor may include assessing and evaluating children with their mental and emotional health, providing counseling therapy to help youth with family, school, and life issues, and developing effective strategies for children struggling with challenges, working with other professionals for additional treatment or support, and educating parents, teachers, and other child care workers on how to best support the mental and emotional health of children and youth. And I think of that, if a Jehovah's Witness child counselor, ministerial servant, elder went into the school, they would say, our kids don't have any part of anything. We don't do Halloween. We don't do Christmas. We don't do birthdays. We don't do Easter. We don't do this. We don't do that. We don't associate with worldly people. We like to just group together. We like to hand out stuff and get people in the school studying. I don't know, what would they say? They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue dealing with children. No one's educated. In fact, they're anti-educational. And we're going to look one more time at the Elders book to show you what happens if you're an elder and you're promoting higher education. We're going to show you what happens. But first of all, some of the things child counselors do, they research techniques, protocols, child youth counseling, being available to children and youth and their families. So remember, the Elders book said to the elders, well, you're probably not going to have time. So you're going to have to discontinue, slough this on some mature sister. No one's qualified, and that's how they deal with it. But here it's saying being available to children or youth and their families in case of an emergency. So it's about being there for the kids. That's what a child counselor is all about. So how to become a child counselor? Well, it's not a quick thing. It's not like late teens. In the Jehovah's Witness, it said in your late teens, they're encouraging these children to be ministerial servants, child counselors. That's what they're encouraging. Here, in the professional industry, and probably in most every other church out there, we read some of the legalities, they're wanting a complete bachelor's degree, a complete internship, a solid work experience, provincial registration, graduate studies. What skills do they need? They need communication skills, active listening skills, empathy. How can a child have empathy for another child? How can let's say a 17, 18-year-old youth in the congregation becomes a ministerial servant, and he has to attend with an elder to go and offer some married couple some advice. He's still a kid living at home. That's the Jehovah's Witnesses family counseling. What are the working environments of a child counselor? Well, they may function in several environments: school, academic institutions, private practice, foster care, juvenile detention facilities, hospitals. So if Jehovah's Witnesses did embrace something like this, it would open up a whole world of career opportunities for their members if they became child counselors. So what does it take? How long does it take to become a Canadian here in Canada counselor? Well, many professions provide mental health services and care, and helping people to understand themselves and the world around them better. So becoming a Canadian certified counselor is one of the professions, and it takes some time. Now, let's get to the root of it. How long does it take? If you're interested in working in this field, it says you may wonder how long it takes. It says if you decide to take this and your doctorate, you can spend up to 8 years in academic training before achieving your certification. 8 years. So let's say a Jehovah's Witness child or youth grows up, leaves home, and goes to university. So they're done high school at 18, 17, another 8 years. They'd be, 26, 27? And then they could have a bachelor's degree, right? But you wouldn't be sending in youths, teenagers in their late teens to do family counseling with no experience. You see, this is what's going on within the Jehovah's Witness religion. It's a big thing to be a family counselor, and I think, my opinion is the governments need to clamp down on the religions, especially this one, in this regards, because they're just shuffling everything under the carpet when it comes to CSA. Okay, one last thing. We're back at the Elders book, and we're looking at Chapter 8, Situations that May Require a Review of an Appointed Brother's Qualifications. So a few weeks ago, we ran a video on this where it actually showed a training video on how elders should delete other elders if they're encouraging higher education. And here it is, right in their Elders book. Let's read this together. It says this is how you can get deleted as an elder if he or a member of his household pursues higher education. So do you think if you had to get a degree in child counseling, you'd have to get a doctorate, spend 8 years in university or something? You would get you removed as an elder. You can't be an elder if you went to school. If you wanted to go to school and be a proper child counselor, they will remove you as an elder. It says, if an appointed brother, his wife, or his children pursue higher education, does his life pattern show that he puts kingdom interests first in his life? Well, he wants to do it to counsel children properly. Does he teach his family members to put kingdom interests first? Why wouldn't he? Because he wants to counsel children properly. Does he respect what he has been published by the faithful slave on the dangers of higher education? You see, there's no scriptures here, folks. There's none. It's just all their BS. Now it's obey. Obey the faithful slave on the dangers of higher education. Well, on the dangers of becoming a good family counselor and provide child counseling properly within the congregations so people aren't leaving and committing suicide? Yes. But no, that's higher education. Do his speech and conduct reveal that he's a spiritual person? How is he viewed by the congregation? They go on with all of these BS questions. Do they have theocratic goals? Does the pursuit of higher education interfere with regular meetings and attendance? Well, sure it's gonna, because you got to go to university. You might have to take a test on a meeting night. You might have to miss a meeting. And if it's really that important, you'll Zoom in or pick it up. It's not that serious. But this is how this religion views higher education. You're disqualified as an elder or ministerial servant if you're going to pursue it, even if you're going to pursue it for the purpose of being a child counselor. Well, that's about all I can really take looking at that elders book. But I hope this program shows any out there, especially governments, people in authority positions in these countries that are allowing this organization to be a religion and continue to belittle higher education, turn a blind eye, provide their own elders book that doesn't look after people. I think enough is enough. I think now is the time to raise our voice and to put a shout out to stop this to our governments. Now, in this video description, we have a link to our petition here in Canada. And if you're Canadian, I'd appreciate it if you can sign up, help us, raise our voice. We need 1,000 people, 1,000 signatures to take it to Parliament. And these are the things that we're speaking out against. So thanks again for watching. And until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.